Well, that music ended quicker than I thought it would. 2 minutes and 31 seconds. I thought I'd be back in time. Well, any of you that initially saw the notification that the live stream was, hey, here I am. And then I quickly popped on and I said, here I'm not. Technology. We love it and we hate it all at the same time, don't we? Because when it's working, we take it for granted. When it's not working, we curse at it and we go, what's going on? So Susie was one of the first ones, as usual, to jump out of the gate and go, all right, here we go. And then I quickly jumped on. I had my little hat on and everything. I said, here we're not. So I had to restart it again. I hope we're tech glitch free for the rest of the live stream now. We can get this done and be successful. All right. Well, hello to everyone and happy Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day weekend. I put on a couple of things and my BDU jacket, which I wore a long time ago. You kind of see it right here. Taking all my regular patches off right now, except for my Academy patch right there. But I'll tell you one thing. My chest apparently has gotten bigger since I was serving active duty because this sucker is so tight. It's so tight on me. I don't think I'm going to be wearing it during the live stream. Otherwise, I'll probably black out. But I wanted to put it on. I told Candido out in New York I was going to put on my battle dress uniform, which I've done. And now I'm going to take it off. And then I've also got my hat on as well. Here I am somewhere. Yep. I've got my hat on as well, which I might leave that on, but I might also take that off as well. Because like I said to Susie and Emma, I'm not used to wearing hats. It feels kind of weird having a hat on, but I'll see if I can leave it on just long enough to recognize Memorial Day for what it is. Now, today's going to be kind of interesting. Today is going to be kind of interesting as far as what I'm going to be showing you and what I'm going to be talking about. Yeah, I've got to get that battle dress arm off. I might need one of you to come to the house and help me pull it off of my arms. Oh, goodness. As we age, don't they? Different directions in different ways. And that battle dress uniform is more of a memento now than it is something that I'll wear regularly. Okay, so on the workbench, as you can see, I think. Let me do one other thing real quick. Let's see. Let me make one other quick change here. Okay, got it. I wanted to make sure my phone wasn't also consuming the 5G network just so we don't have any streaming issues. So that should be great. On the workbench right now, we've got what I referred to in the title as a featherweight feast. And by featherweight feast, I'm talking about the fact that over here, I'm going to go ahead and move Dr. Singer to the side. Actually move him to a seat. Over here, we've got traditional featherweight, a Centennial model. So it would have rolled out of the Singer factories out in Elizabethport, New Jersey, right around 1951, celebrating that centennial year for Singer. Any of your machines that have this centennial badge, that's the significance of it. Singer was celebrating 100 years of being in business. They opened in 1851, and to recognize that centennial birthday, they did a special rollout, not just a featherweight with centennial badges, but a variety of different Singer machines have those centennial badges. And some of you probably have them in your collections, in your sewing space. So centennial machines, right around 1951. Let me give you a little bit of more history on the generic, if you allow me to say that, the generic featherweight. as most of featherweight was first introduced at the Chicago World's Fair right around 1933. And when you look online, you'll see people that kind of debate. They kind of debate, was it 1933? Was it 1934? Because you'll see both there online as far as when the Singer featherweight was first introduced. Most don't debate about the fact that it was introduced at the Chicago World's Fair. Does anyone remember what the theme of the Chicago World's Fair was back in 1933? I'm guessing no one in the audience was at that time, probably, but I'm wondering if you know what theme they had at the Chicago World's Fair where the featherweight was first introduced. Does anyone know? Go ahead and type it in the live chat if you know. And while you're doing that, I'm also going to say some quick good mornings as well. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to Susie, of course, from Minnesota. Good morning to Kevin. And this is a different Kevin. I don't recognize this Kevin, the second one in the live chat. Some of you might, but I don't recognize this Kevin. But welcome to this Kevin with the last name to the live stream. Great to have you here. And good morning to Al Koss from, based on his emojis, from sunny California. Sunny California. And some of you may have seen that do Facebook. You may have seen I did a post on Alex and the coffee mug that he won, the sewing themed coffee mug, and everyone went nuts over that post. Everyone went at 200 likes on our Facebook. That's a lot of likes for the Cow Country Facebook page. We have a much bigger following on YouTube than we typically do on Facebook, but as we recently have had a mega growth due to some outreach and promotional outreach that I've tried to do. And our audience has gone from 3,000 followers to 12,000 followers. From 3,000 followers and likes on the Cow Country Facebook page to 12,000 likes and 12,000 followers now. And we're getting a lot of introduction and interaction with our posts now on that page. So I'm really glad I took those steps to reach out and to introduce us in the world, particularly in of our Cow Country family over in Japan and other Asian cultures, including the Philippines and also Vietnam. So we have a lot of new followers now on the Facebook page. Some of them might migrate over to YouTube, but those really are different audiences. Some people do Facebook, they don't do YouTube. Others do YouTube, but they don't do Facebook. So we'll have to wait and see our net increase of about 8,000 followers on Facebook. Some of those folks might migrate over and join us on some of these live streams. Some won't. They just don't do YouTube for whatever reason. But really exciting to have that growth. Also, I didn't make a big official announcement about it, but Susie brought it to my attention from Minnesota. We have crossed our next major milestone, and we hit 14,000 dedicated subscribers on the YouTube channel that you're watching this live stream on right now. And again, 14,000, that's a great milestone. But if we can get more of the people that visit that channel every month, somewhere between 30 and 150,000 unique visitors every month on the Cow Country YouTube channel, boy, oh boy, our numbers will just blow out of the water. Exponential growth on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't clicked subscribe yet, please consider doing that. Please consider becoming a subscriber. It gives our channel more visibility, and it encourages others to join the family as well. So let me encourage you to do that. Okay, so let me look at, I was greeting some folks. Let me finish my greeting. At that question that I was talking about regarding the. All right. right. So I already said good morning to Alex. Good morning to Emma. And good morning to Susie Tippett. And Corinne. Good morning to Corinne. Who else do we have? Good morning to Kathy King. And I think I've greeted everybody. I think I've greeted everyone at this point that's in the live chat. So it's great to have all of you here on this Saturday. So back to the featherweight story. Let's see here if anyone got it. It sounds like we're getting some audio issues. Have they cleaned up? How is the audio and how is the video right now? How is the audio and how is the video right now? On my laptop screen, the video looks good. It looks like our video is solid on the laptop screen, but give me some feedback if you would on video and audio quality right now. How am I coming through? Okay, so I think most of you know this by now, but I rely on a 5G tower. I rely on a 5G tower that's about a mile from the workshop. And that 5G tower not only supplies home internet, but it also supplies cellular service as well to anyone that has that cellular service with T-Mobile. So depending on the load that's on that tower, we might get some fluctuation as far as the performance, because they give priority to the cellular phone users, and then second priority is to the home internet users like I'm using right now for live streaming. So hopefully we have fewer people using their cellular phones. They're going outside enjoying the sunshine. They're going outside and enjoying outside activities, and they're staying off of their phone while we're live streaming. I hope so. That would be great. Okay, so I maybe I missed it, but I didn't see anyone in the live stream that answered the question that I asked, and that is, when this featherweight first was introduced at the Chicago World's Fair back in 1933, what was the theme of that Chicago World's Fair? And the answer is, it was called A Century of Progress. A Century of Progress. And in previous live streams or videos, I've actually shown you little video clips. They actually shot video of the Chicago World's Fair back in 1933. And the reason I think that some people debate when was the featherweight introduced at the Chicago World's Fair is because of the timing of when the fair started. The fair actually ran from 1933 all the way into 1934. So a lot of people will say 1933, others will say 1934. They're both right. They both are correct, because the fair ran almost a complete year, and they had tens of millions of people come to that event to look at all of the technology that had been developed over the previous century, which included the featherweight 221. And so it was a major event, and you can look up on YouTube and other places and actually look at some of the video that I've shared before of that big event that happened down in Chicago where the featherweight was introduced. Does anyone know how long they produced and I'll say just the average featherweight, the 221? What was the production window for the 221? Does anyone know? Oh, hello to Sheila Keelgore as well. Hello to Sheila. Welcome, Sheila. It's always good to have these family gatherings, these classrooms where we can reacquaint ourselves with folks that we haven't seen for a while or that we've seen just recently. Good morning also to Sarah Wimmers. Welcome to Sarah. Winston-Salem. That sounds like a pretty area. North Carolina Home Depot. I don't know what that means. Maybe is Sarah in North Carolina, or is she in Winston-Salem? Huh. Okay. Oh, you're out shopping with your dad or your husband. I'm sorry. You're out shopping with your husband. What fun. Hopefully you're shopping for either fabric or sewing machines. One only hopes, right? So Emma threw out a guess as far as the production window for the 221s that were introduced first at the Chicago World's Fair. And she writes 1933 until around 1968, I think that says. I'm a little bit of a distance from the laptop screen. I think that says 68. So yeah, 68. I put on different glasses. It's a little bit better now. So the general featherweight, the 221, not the 22-1, not the 221K, and certainly not the 222K or the 221J that was made in Canada. The general 221 was produced from about 1933 until 1957. From 1933 until around 1957, there was the 221K, the 221K made over in England that was produced into the 1960s, along with a lot of 22s there. I better clarify some of that so I don't confuse people. So the one that we're looking at on screen right here was produced from about 1933 until 19. This is the one that was introduced at the Chicago World's Fair, the first rendition, the very first flavor of the featherweight that the general public saw at that Century of Progress event down in Chicago. A number of other versions followed, like the 221-1, the 221K made over in England, and also the 221J made up in Canada. That's the celery colored one, or some people refer to it as white. But the celery colored one also was made all the way into the 1960s. So this is the entry level featherweight that was introduced at that big Chicago that ran from 1933 until 1934. Following that, right around 1953, I'm going to go ahead and move this featherweight, and I should give credit as well to Mary Schmortz, who also recently I showed that 66K hand crank that I offered for sale on behalf of Mary, and Mindy out in Las Vegas ended up scooping it up. This is another one of Mary's machines, this 221. So this will be on the other workbench. I've shown it in some of the reels, and I'm hoping to be able to focus on this machine this week and get this live streamed by next Saturday, or maybe a little bit earlier. So let me move this one out of the way. So following the 221 came out this version of the featherweight. And this version of the featherweight, this 222K, was introduced in 1953. 1953 was a milestone year for Singer because they also added a secondary badge mark right here that identified the model of the machine. Prior to that, all they had was the branding mark emblem right here. But then in 1953, they started adding an additional plate below the branding mark, and it identified what that model was. Both household and industrial as well got that additional plate. I'll actually see if I can give you a closer look at it as well. I think you can see that in the shot. So it's really easy to identify a post 1953 machine if it has this little plate by Singer. That was added as a special thing. Now this 222K has a different production window, obviously, than the original. Again, the original 221 that we looked at was produced from about 1933 to 57. And those models, for the most part, would have been made in Elizabethport, New Jersey. And then those other versions of the 221 that I described to you, the -1, the -K, and the -J would have been made in approximately the same time frame, but would have been produced longer. The 222K, made exclusively in Kilbowie, Scotland, was produced from make sure I check my dates here so I get it right. 1953 until 1961. So 1953 to 1961, they introduced a unique version of the featherweight because all of a sudden it had the capacity to be a free arm sewing machine as well. So this entire bed on the 222K have a free arm that you can access for working on cuffs, sleeves, and other things like that that might require that free arm function. Also, they added a feed dog drop to the 222K that the previous featherweights had not had. And that's easily accomplished by just pushing this lever right here. And you can drop the feed dogs. So it was a big revolutionary thing with the 222K being introduced in 1953 because you no longer needed a darning plate if you wanted to take those feed dogs on a commission. All you did was push the lever down, the feed dogs dropped, and when you wanted to resume sewing with that feed, you just pushed it back up again. Wonderful innovation along with the free arm function as well. And it really was nearly an identical model to the original 221, with the exception of on the back of the machine, if we turn it around, on the back of the machine, right in this area of the machine right here, adjacent to the presser foot, is going to be about a 1/16 of an inch wider than the original 221. About a 1/16 of an inch wider. Why do you need to know something silly like that? Because if you're looking to use certain embroidery attachments on your featherweight, they will fit much easier on an original 221 than on a 222K because this is wider back here and it makes it difficult to attach certain embroidery attachments to these featherweights, the 222Ks. So, subtle differences, but all in all, the body and everything else on the machine, the motor, were all identical to that original featherweight introduced at that Century of Progress in Chicago in 1933. The other difference is this was a much more labor-intensive model to produce because of that free arm design and because of a number of the other intricacies of the design of the 222K. So over the course of 8 years of production, this was again in production from 1953 until 1961, they only made about 100,000 of these machines. Whereas the standard featherweight, depending on what group you believe, they made somewhere between 1.75 to 3.5 million of those featherweights over the 24 years that they were produced. Now, the number that I give greater credence to is the 3.5 million, which would come out to an average production size of about 146,000 machines per year over the 24 years that they produced the standard featherweight. Again, the standard featherweight was in production from 1933 until around 1957, and they would have produced on average about 146,000 machines a year over that 24-year period, coming out with a number much closer to around 3.5 million machines. So I would say this is kind of like the rare unicorn among featherweights here, in the fact that they had this in production for 8 years, but they only made 100,000 of them. So they made fewer of these over 8 years than they did one group in 1 year for the standard featherweight. So if you own a 222K, you've got an incredibly rare machine that you can hold high and proud in your collection of vintage sewing machines. Let's see. I want to give you some other dates real quick too. So the only other dates I wanted to give you, and if you want to add this to the live chat, that's fine, is the production window for the equivalent of the standard featherweight that I showed you first. In the UK was a different production runtime. Again, in the from about 1933 until 1957, the UK version, the 221K, was produced from 1947 into the 1960s. They really didn't zero in on a date in the 1960s, but it would have been probably in conjunction with when the 222K was introduced and ended in 1961. They were in pretty close succession between those two models, one starting in 1947 in the UK, the other one starting in 1953 in Kilbowie, Scotland, in that market. The 222K being made in Kilbowie, Scotland, was never specifically sold in the United States as a new machine. This would have been introduced only over in Europe and only would have been marketed over there during that 8 years of production. Whereas the featherweights got marketed all over the place, from the UK to the US to Canada, and the list goes on wherever they made those featherweight machines. Okay. I know it's a lot of information, but I want you to know this stuff. Just checking my notes to see if I wanted to touch on anything else. Okay, I think that's about it. So let me move this unicorn of featherweights out of the way, and then maybe I can start to explain why did I start this live stream talking about featherweights when we're going to be looking at a Belvedere. We're going to be looking at a Belvedere. What does a Belvedere have to do in any way with a featherweight sewing machine that would have been made either in Kilbowie, Scotland, like this one, or made on the East Coast in the United States, or in Canada, or in the UK? What do these featherweights have to do in any way with a Belvedere sewing machine that belongs to Kevin and Doreen out in Iowa? I'm finally telling you the owner of this machine after all of that blah, blah, blah. This actually was brought to the workshop by Kevin and Doreen in their car along with the other machines, and it's been waiting to work its way up to the workbench. Finally, it's here. So let me move this out of the way, and we'll take a closer look at this Belvedere. I just want to make sure I set all these things down gently so I don't damage it. So does anyone know anything about the Belvedere machine? And if you do some lookup on Google, it's going to get a little bit confusing. It'll get a little bit confusing because Belvedere was also a branding mark. Belvedere was also a branding mark of the National Sewing Machine Company as well. So Belvedere, kind of like Fashion Mate and some of the other names that are common in our sewing space, were made by multiple companies. Now, this Belvedere here was not made by the National Sewing Machine Company. So you can eliminate that as a possibility straight away. Any guess as to where it might be made, where this machine came from? Other than Kevin and Doreen, and Kevin and Doreen, keep it on the low as far as any particulars about this machine until I reveal, if you would. Don't share anything about it because we want to keep our friends in just a little bit of suspense about the origin of this machine, this Belvedere. See if there's any guesses. If you were here at the beginning of the live stream and you heard the style of music I was playing, that might give you a clue. If you were right at the beginning of the live stream, I had some music playing that ran out before I got back down to the workbench. So some of you were just sitting there. The music ended and you're like, okay, where's Scott? Where'd he go? What's he doing? Checking mail or something? So, yeah, let's see if there's any guesses. Oh, hello to Kevin Orr as well. Hello to Kevin. And oh, Candido is decorating the VFW parade float. Very, very cool. Yeah, Candido is involved with a lot of veterans things. Candido is involved with a lot of veterans things. A lot of veterans things. So our friend Alex out in California, out in sunny California, threw a guess out there and said, okay, if it's not made by the National Machine Company, then maybe its origin is Japan. And I don't know if he based that off of Googling something or maybe the style of the music live stream. I have no idea. Any other guesses other than Japan? And Alex said he didn't Google it, so I'm not sure how he came up with Japan, but yeah, that's a good guess. Very good guess. Okay, all right, enough dramatic pause. Enough dramatic pause. Let me confirm Alex's guess, however he came up with it, by putting out a friend out here in front of this machine that most of you will know, some of you may not. And she's so tall I can't even get her completely in the shot without adjusting it. Most of you know that that's Umi, right? That's Umi, and she's been a part of the workshop team for quite a while. And we'll kind of use that angle, I think, for right now. Been part of the workshop team for quite some time. Quite some time. And she is here because Alex's guess, Alex's hunch was correct. This particular Belvedere was, in fact, made in Japan, which is why I picked a Japanese flavor music at the opening of this live stream, and why Umi is out now. So let's actually take a look at this machine finally so you can see why in heaven's name did Scott start this and blah, blah, blah for so long about different featherweight versions. It's because this was the answer from the Japanese folks as to offering a featherweight type machine that they could say, this is part of our offering from Japan, part of our offering. Just going to move Umi a little bit to the side. Now, this doesn't look much at all like the other featherweights that we just looked at, does it? It looks very different. It has some of the features of a featherweight, like the tilt bed. But the rest of the lay of the land of the machine is very to Japanese design, isn't it? The other thing that's really unique to it is the motor that's on this machine as well. And also the drive system is very different also. Now, most of you know this, it's pretty common knowledge, but what size, the featherweights that I showed you and that I talked about, what size motor does that machine have? The featherweight 22, the featherweight 221J, 221K, and even the 222K, the free arm version of the featherweight. What size motor comes on that machine typically? Yeah, Alex grabbed it right away. Alex nailed it and said 0.4 amps. That's absolutely correct. And I noticed Emma's comment as well. It looks like, kind of looks like a 301 a little bit, doesn't it? Or if you look at the base, because the head of the machine right here is mounted to this plastic base. It almost resembles a little bit like a Spartan. Remember the Spartans have that plastic base that they're mounted to because they don't sit level? And also some of the 185Js and 185Ks that were made in Canada, they're also a 3/4 size type machine. Those also generally are mounted to a plastic base as well. And that's the way this one is. It's anchored on 4 corners to the base that gives this machine stability for sewing. So what size motor do you think this Japanese version of the featherweight has? And this one specifically, they didn't want to get into any sort of a trademark infringement with Singer. So this one is labeled Feather Light 110 Rocket. Feather Light 110 Rocket. Let me give you a closer look at that. I don't know if you can see that, if that's too dark. Let me grab my flashlight. That plate is really, really dark. So let me see if this will help. So they didn't want to call it a featherweight, but they built it with a similar design to the featherweight. And then they called it a Feather Light 110 Rocket. So I'm going to look at the live chat, see what kind of guesses you're coming up with as far as, does this have a 0.4 amp as well? Does this have maybe a 0.65 amp or a 0.7 or a 0.8? Or I wonder what kind of motor it has. What do you think? Emma's saying 0.45 and Susie is saying 0.5. 0.5 would be kind of in line with a lot of Singer models. They usually were 0.54, but close enough. I mean, 0.4 of an amp difference. Would it surprise you? Would it shock you? Would it amaze you if I told you that your guess? Oh, Kathy King is getting closer. Kathy King is getting closer to the size motor that the Japanese are claiming on this this Belvedere Featherlight Model 110 rocket. That's just fun to say, isn't it? I wish I had like a little rocket I could. Whoa! So yeah, the Belvedere Featherlight 110 model rocket comes with a very, very different motor. A very different motor. Alex is getting closer. Alex is getting closer. My good friend from out in California. Bro, I think it's a 1 amp motor on this beast. That's why they're calling it a rocket. Why else would they call it a rocket? You can't call a featherweight a rocket with a 0.4 amp motor. It's just too small. You need a rocket engine on that featherweight style machine to call it a rocket. Unless the Japanese are just messing with us. Maybe they're just messing with us and saying, oh, we're going to call it a rocket because then we're not infringing or encroaching on any trademark or patent laws or anything like that, where Singer's going to try to sue us. They're going to try to bring a lawsuit against us. So we're going to call it a Featherlight Model 110 rocket. Rocket. Wow. Umi's looking at me like I'm a nut job, trying to make a rocket sound. I don't make a very good rocket sound at all. No rocket sounds. Kathy King, I've said this before. All of you in the audience right now, all of you in the classroom are the smartest people in the world, hands down. So you're getting closer and closer and closer to what the Japanese claim this machine is powered by. Kathy said, what about a 1.1? A 1.1 would be kind of in the FOF range. A lot of the FOF sewing machines have a 1.1 amp motor or a 1.3 amp motor. Is that possible? I mean, this is not probably, I'd have to do let's do some measurements while we're guessing additional things about the motor. Because I'm just curious if this even qualifies to be called a featherweight, because a featherweight by definition is not a 3/4 size machine like the 185Ks, the 185Js, the 99Ks, the Spartans. Those are all considered 3/4 size machines. The featherweight is considered a half size machine. It's actually a scale down from a 3/4 size machine. Does this qualify? I wonder, as far as overall length and stuff. So I'm curious to bring that other featherweight back, have the leadership team log in the measurements that I get, and then see if we can call this a half size machine, or if it's going to be closer to a 99K, a Spartan, a 185J, or 185K, and really fall in the class of being a 3/4 size machine. I'm just curious. If it qualifies. Alex, I'm reaching out right now. Alex is out in California and he's going, hey, go big or go home, man. Go big or go home. Go home. So y'all can look at Alex's guess. It's pretty unrealistic. I mean, honestly, it's pretty unrealistic that they would try to put a motor the same size as a Swedish Beauty on this Belvedere Featherlight Model 110 rocket. But you never know. You never know, do you? Let me get a measurement real quick. I'm just curious. All right, let's look at these machines like this. Much bigger profile because it's in that base, right? But if you look at these side by sides, they kind of stand out, where this would present itself more in the realm of a half size. This just looks a little bit bigger, doesn't it? Let's get some measurements and just see. So from one end of the bed to the other end, you're looking at 16 inches. 16 inches on the Featherlight Model 110 rocket from here all the way to the other side, 16 inches. What about the featherweight? Featherweight, 14 and 3/4. So it's it's just a little bit less. It's almost 2 inches shorter. That's what I wanted to say. It's almost 2 inches shorter, not quite, but it's almost 2 inches shorter than the Rocket Light Model 110 back over here. All right, what about width? About 7 1/4, about 7 1/4 from front to back, the depth, if you will, 7 1/4. And you're looking at 6 3/4 across here on the featherweight, 6 3/4. What about the height? And I don't know if I should take the height really from here or from the base up. About 11 inches, approximately 11 inches. If you measure just the machine head and don't count the case, it's going to be right about 9 inches, 9 inches in height. Yeah, 9 inches in height. Let's check the featherweight. It could be right around 8 inches tall from the top of the desk to the top of the arm, right around 8 inches. What about distance from the needle to the pillar? That's part of our heart measurement, HRP. Part of our heart measurement is really a critical space on the machine because that's going to be the area where you're going to be rotating bulky materials. So if you have a little bit more room in the heart space, it's going to make bulky sewing projects a lot easier. So first of all, in the feather weight, let's see here. I can get this. From the needle to the pillar, you're looking at right around 5.5 inches from the needle to the inside of the pillar, 5.5 inches. And on our Featherlight Model 110, just shy of 7 inches, just shy of 7 inches on the Featherlight Model 110 from the needle to the inside of the pillar. So quite a bit more turning space on this Japanese version of what would be a featherweight. What other measurements would you like me to try to do to compare these two machines so we can whether this does qualify as a half size machine or whether it really is a 3/4 size machine? Any other measurements? Any other measurements you can think of? I'm not seeing anyone piping up with any other measurements. So what does the audience think? We fold these up. I'll fold this up like that. I'll fold this up like that. Here's our featherweight. Here's our Belvedere Featherlight Model 110. Does this qualify as a half size or you think it's more of a 3/4 size? Oh, the height of the harp. I thought I already did that. I thought I already did the height of the harp. So you're looking at on the featherweight right around just short of 4 3/4. And on the Belvedere, right around 4 3/4. So 4 3/4 as far as the harp height on the Rocket 110, 4 3/4. And on the featherweight, you're looking at right around 4 1/4. Right around 4 1/4, 4.25. Hello to Deborah Williams as well. Hello to Deborah. Three-quarter size. Not a lot of opinions about this. Y'all are being conservative today. So, but yeah, they are noticeably different in how they profile and how they present, aren't they? Especially when you look at them kind of like this. But at any rate, the Japanese did not want to be without. They did not want to be without the opportunity of saying that they were offering a machine out of Japan that would be an answer to many of the folks that were looking for machines like the featherweight. Now, what kind of material is this Belvedere made out of? Are we looking at steel? Are we looking at magnesium? Are we looking at aluminum? What kind of material do you think that this Belvedere is made out of? What did they make this machine from? Oh, yeah, I should bring this one over for fun. I'll just show you one other machine for size purposes. This machine right here is actually from Canada. Get a little bit further back. And this is not a 185J or 185K. This is actually a 285J, I believe. I think that's a 285J. Yeah, the model is right underneath there. It's a little bit hard to read. But again, this would be considered a 3/4 size machine, the 285J out of Canada. So, yeah, the jury's kind of out still, isn't it? When you look at these machines comparatively, it's kind of lined up right there. Quite a bit shorter, quite a bit lower profile. I don't know if has anyone seen one of these 285Js before out of Canada? A lot of people have seen the 185J and the 185K, but the 285K is a little bit more rare when it comes to finding this machine. And this machine was actually made in the same year that I was born. This machine was made in the same year that I was born. So if anyone knows my year of birth, you know what year this Canadian 285J was born at the factory up there in Canada. Yeah, I think it's kind of a pretty machine, don't you? So let's see what you guys are saying about what this Rocket 110 is made out of. Emma is saying aluminum. Oh, hello to Aaron Allen as well. Hello to Aaron. Kathy's also saying aluminum. Kathy's also saying aluminum as well. Let's see. Let's see if we can test that theory. Sort of kind of magnetic, isn't it? Not there. There. So we've got a combination of materials that the Japanese used to make this Belvedere Model 110 rocket. Your hunch of aluminum for the bulk of the body is absolutely correct. The bulk of this body is going to be made out of aluminum. The extension tilt bed right here is also going to be aluminum. And then you've got metal throughout the machine, including the stitch length controller, the main shaft, the wheel as well. So the bulk of it will be aluminum. The rest of it will be steel, as you can see. I think you can see that. Yeah. Well, finally, we have to look at the back of the machine to find out if Alex from California, going big instead of going home, got the answer correct. Let me spin it around and let's look at the data plate. Hopefully I can get the right angle so you can read it with me. A lot of information on this data plate. A lot of information. I'm going to hold it really, really still, really, really still, so you can read all the data on there. And whatever you find interesting, type it in the live chat. Type in the live chat anything you see that's interesting on the data plate with regard to the size of the engine that they're claiming on this Japanese machine. Well, hopefully you were able to see that. The tinting again on this with the ebony background it makes it a little bit harder for the camera to see it, but hopefully you could see the amperage rating that they're giving to this motor on this machine. Yeah, Alex and la la la. I love it. Alex, you are a hoot, man. You are a hoot. I just read his comment about Scott was born in the year 2000. Yeah, Alex and Aaron, 1.5 amps. 1.5 amps. So they're giving this machine the same engine rating as a Swedish Beauty, one of the green machines, 1.5 amps. Now, here's the only thing, and I talk about this a lot. You can put any size motor in a sewing machine. It's going to come down to a lot of factors as far as what that motor is able to realistically put down to the needle. It comes down to the wrap of the motor inside, the copper wrap, and how they pull together all the other components of the motor, from the commutator to the stators to the stack lamentations. The quality and the engineering of the motor also plays a major role in what that motor can potentially put out. But another factor, looking outside of the motor, because think about it like a race. When you're racing with power through a sewing machine, you're going to start down over here in the motor area. Then you have to drive that power up to the balance wheel. And usually there'll be an intermediary point, like a bobbin winding assembly, like on the Swedish Beauties and some of the FOF machines and the Elnas. So you start out with that output from the motor, and you drive that output all the way up there through anything else that's in the way, into the balance wheel, all the way across the machine through the main shaft, while you're also turning a number of components down below as well, like the rockers and everything else that drives down to the raceway. And then finally, you get to this juncture here near the faceplate, and you've got to drive that power further then down the needle bar and then eventually down to the material. That's a long way. Even though it's a short distance, that's a lot of mechanics of the machine with 1.5 amps over here. And then you drive it through these mechanics over here and up to the balance wheel. Already there, you probably have lost about 0.3 of an amp of power. So you're down to 1.2, maybe 1.1. Then you drive it all the way across this long main shaft. And again, if it's not optimized and you've got the pitman arm and other things that are creating additional drag on that main shaft, there you lose another probably 3 to 0.4 amp. So then you go from 1.5 to 1.1 all the way down to about 0.8, 0.85. And finally, you get all the way over here to the mechanics of the faceplate and the needle bar, and there you're going to lose additional power from that motor as it's trying to turn those mechanics of the machine. So you start out with 1.5, you lose some here, 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 you lose a little bit more here. Finally, whatever power is left gets to that needle bar and pushes down into that material that you're sewing. And again, the more you optimize a machine, the fewer drag factors, the fewer restrictions, the fewer boundaries there are to where that power is going to be lost in transfer from the point of the motor to finally where that needle strikes the material. The other thing that comes into play even beyond all of that, if I turn this machine around, and by the way, as I'm lifting this machine up, like I said, it's a combination, like the featherweight, it's a combination of steel and aluminum. What do you think this machine weighs in at? And does anyone know the weight of a featherweight, at least the declared weight of a featherweight? The declared weight of a featherweight. So how does this compare to a featherweight that would have been made in Canada or in the UK or Elizabethport, New Jersey? How do you think this compares? I'll tilt it back and I'll show you another thing that can steal power away big time from a sewing machine. Okay, so Kathy King is saying 14 pounds. Now, is when Kathy King is writing 14 pounds, and also Aaron Allen from the beautiful state of Vermont is saying 14 pounds, are you ladies saying the weight of the 110 rocket from Japan, or are you talking about a traditional? What is the 14 pounds you're describing? Is it the traditional featherweight that was introduced at the Chicago World's Fair in 1933, or is it this Rocket 110 that came out of Japan in the 1950s? Okay, Aaron is saying the Rocket 110, 14 pounds. And again, we have to take into account it's got this base as well that goes with it also. Jenny is saying 11 pounds. And I'm assuming that Jenny's guess is relating to the original featherweight that was introduced in 1933, not the Rocket 110 that we're looking at here. That's kind of a Japanese flavor of the featherweight. Alex out of the beautiful state of California is saying, Scott, I think even with this base, I think this rocket is going to weigh in right around 16 pounds. A lot of guesses, a lot of great guesses. Well, let me tell you this. Yeah, the base and the bigger motor for sure. So the answer is, and I'll ring the bell to be dramatic. The answer is my friend out in California is a smart cracker or a smart cookie, I think is the phrase correctly. Alex is a smart cookie, and he's also really, really good at putting out some targeted guesses as well. This Rocket 110, the Featherlight version of the featherweight out of Japan, when I weighed it on my scale leading up to this live stream, this machine weighs in at 16.2 pounds. 16.2 pounds, where the featherweight that I had on the workbench before, that was made in Elizabethport, New Jersey, that belongs to Mary, weighs in right around 11 pounds. So this is about 5 pounds heavier, a little bit more than 5 pounds heavier than the traditional featherweight that would have been made for that Chicago World's Fair in 1933. So great, great targeted guess, Alex. Well done. Well done. Well done. What other machine, going back to the Singer Sewing Machine Company, there's another machine that I oftentimes will associate with the featherweight, and I refer to it as the big sister of the featherweight. Does anyone know what model that is? The big sister to the featherweight. Emma, I believe, said earlier in the live stream that this machine reminded her of that machine. You remember what machine that is? Yeah. All of you. Like I said, you guys are so doggone smart, incredibly smart. All of you are saying almost in one voice. One voice. The 301, Scott, the 301. Well, interestingly, when you think about a Singer 301, it's a full-size machine. It's a much bigger machine. Now, granted, it's got a tower style motor in it, and it's going to be rated right around 0.54 amps, zero point 0.6 peak. So it's going to have, by amperage declaration, the 301 is going to have half the size of the motor that this one does. But it's also going to weigh in at 16 pounds, if you didn't know that. The Singer 301, the 301A, both weigh in right around 16 pounds. So they come in as a big sister to the featherweight. They come in 5 pounds heavier, less than a gallon of milk. I think a gallon of milk weighs about 8 pounds. So the 301, 301A weigh about 16 pounds, 5 pounds heavier than the featherweight, but they're the same weight practically as this Rocket 110. Now, another question about the mechanics before we get a closer look underneath here at the drive system that steals more power away from this Japanese motor. I correct myself. I correct myself because Japanese machine, the motor in this Japanese machine was actually made in the USA. The motor in this machine was actually made in the USA and then installed in this Japanese machine. But back to the mechanics of this machine real quick before we kind of look, I'll get you closer. You can look inside and I'll show you the drive system that steals more power away from this motor. What kind of hook system do you think this machine has? Obviously, the featherweight is a rotary hook system. The 301 rotary hook, 301A rotary hook. What kind of hook system does this Rocket 110 have in it? What do you think? Oh, Kevin, thank you, Kevin. Kevin just said water and milk in a gallon size jug is about 8.8 pounds. I've always just rounded, but it's good to know. I've always thought it was probably, around 9 pounds for a gallon of milk, somewhere in that neck of the woods. But Kevin Orr is saying 8.8. So yeah, the difference between the featherweight and the 301 being 5 pounds It's what is that, about 65%, 70% of a gallon of milk or something like that? I'm not really good with math. Most of you know that. Some of you are math masters. But yeah, the difference is negligible when you think about it being less than a gallon of milk. Yeah, quite a bit less. So what do you guys think? What kind of hook system in this Rocket 110, Rocket 110 Featherlight out of Japan? Does it have a rotary hook system? Does it have a long beak shuttle? Does it have a vibrating shuttle? Does it have an oscillating hook system? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Kathy is saying rotary. Kathy King is saying rotary hook system. No other guesses. No other guesses. So what I can say is that's a very, very good guess. It's a very good guess. Typically, within most of the Japanese design, if you think about all the Class 15 clone machines that the Japanese rolled out post World War II, most of those machines are going to be set up with an oscillating hook system. It was their hook system of choice. And this Rocket 110 is no exception to that. So it has an oscillating hook system instead of a rotary hook system. And again, if you're brand new to sewing, oscillating means it's going to move like a pendulum, like this, in the sewing process, back and forth, instead of going in a complete circle. So on a machine like this, typically it's going to be a lot more tolerant of heavier threads because that hook doesn't have to bring that thread all the way around. It just has to bring it from one point to another like this. So generally on an oscillating hook system machine, you're able to go with a heavier upholstery thread and some of the other Sailrite type threads, and you're able to get away with it, where on a rotary hook system, it would cause jamming issues. But what I really wanted to show you over on this side of the machine is the Japanese with this US made motor. And I can try to get underneath the edge so you can look at that motor plate a little bit more easily. But from that 1.5 amps that they're claiming, and again, if you buy any motors now, like off-market type motors that are being offered on eBay, Etsy, Bonanza, other places like that, you're going to see a lot of motors coming out of China that are rated 1.5 amps as well. And I've done testing on those motors. They're putting out a lot less power than they're claiming. So what a manufacturer claims on their data plate sometimes can be very different when you field test it and you see what is that motor actually putting out. They're saying 1.5 on those Chinese motors. I'm seeing about 0.7, 0.75 on a good day. So I didn't do specific testing on this motor other than to do some sew-offs on it. Seems like it's a pretty robust, strong motor. But again, is it 1.5 amps? It would take a lot more testing to know for sure. But even before we debate whether the motor is in fact 1.5 amps or less, we've got a lot of things in the way that are holding that motor up. And on this Rocket 110, instead of having a single belt, it's got two belts that have to be driven by that motor. Two belts. Let me give you a closer look at them so you can see. This is one of our belts right here, which is absolutely huge. Huge belt. And then there's another belt. Where's my flashlight? I think I already put it away. There's another belt just to the left of it, right there. If you can see that, it's right there, driving that pulley and part of the pitman assembly. So you've got a mega belt here. You got another belt there. And both of these belts are having to be turned by the motor, this right here, being turned by this motor. That has a huge impact, in what power you finally get down to that needle. Most machines are going to have to struggle in turning a main belt, or even the machines that are gear to gear, they've got to turn those gear to gear mechanics as well. Here you've got one belt and a secondary belt as well that's part of this drive assembly. So, all I can say is you've got to really weigh in when you've got a system like this where you've got a main belt that comes off of the motor output pulley. It then engages the mechanics of the machine and then drives that up to the main shaft and the balance wheel. So you're basically transferring power from this belt to that belt, the smaller belt over here. You're transferring power to that second belt, and then you're having to push that power after it's already lost some transfer between here and here. You're having to push that up to the mechanics of the machine and drive it all the way across the machine down to the needle eventually. So this is another factor beyond all the other mechanics that you can see here that also play into the drag factor of that motor. And that's where, it's like a car engine. You can say that a car engine is a certain size, but if the transfer of the power of that motor to the drive shaft and ultimately to the wheels has anything getting in the way of it, you're going to lose power in the transfer. And this is different in the setup, obviously, than the featherweight, where the featherweight has a single belt coming off of that 0.4 amp motor, and then it goes directly up to the balance wheel. There's one transfer point on the featherweight, the traditional featherweight. On here, there's two transfer points where the power is being pushed from the motor to a secondary belt, so belt to belt, and then eventually working its way up to the main shaft, the balance wheel, and across the machine. So what's my point in doing all that blah, blah, blah about the setup is you're losing a lot of power in the transfer because of the setup and the design of this Japanese version 110 rocket Featherlight. So if this is in fact a 1.5 amp motor, it's a good thing because you're losing a ton of that amperage transferring power from one belt to another and then eventually pushing it up to the balance wheel, the main shaft, and all the way across the machine, through the bottom and the rockers, through the pitman arm and everything else that interrupts the flow of that energy working its way towards that needle. Oh, I wanted to show you the motor as well if I'm able to do it. I'll try to. It's going to be really hard to see it, I think. That's the motor plate, again, showing that it's US made. It's a US made motor. And I think it says Champion. I think it says Champion motor or something like that. So we can talk about this all day long as far as motor transfer and obstacles and amperage, true output amperage and everything else. But our pleasure in this vintage Japanese machine that was made to mimic the featherweight introduced in 1933 is that it's just a beautiful machine. It's going to be a really fun machine for Kevin and Doreen to use out in Iowa. And I know that they'll be planning a trip soon to pick up this machine and also the other machine that I just got done with that I'm hoping to present either this Tuesday or 1 week from today. Haven't decided yet. I might also have an unboxing to do in between, but the other machine is a really, really cool vintage Bernina machine out of Switzerland. And that's the other machine that Kevin and Doreen will be traveling all the way from Iowa back here to pick up and then take back to Iowa. And I have no idea what they're going to use the machines for. You could ask them. I saw that they were in the live chat earlier. If they're still in the live chat, you can ask them, what are you going to use that Rocket 110 for? What are you going to use that Bernina that we haven't seen yet? What are you going to use those machines for? It'd just be interesting to, to learn about that, what kind of projects they have planned and how they're going to apply those machines to projects. And Doreen also will be excited to see that these, the bottom of this case was basically just sitting flat on the sewing surface. The rubber feet that had been on here were totally gone. They had totally dried out and were disintegrated. So it was basically just sitting on the flat surface of this base. they would not take a replacement like on a 301 or on a featherweight. So I had to use basically grommets. Let me see if I can find it. I'd use grommets like this to build up. Grommets like this to build up the base with two sections in order to get that to fit back through and to give this machine stability. And grommets are wonderful. You can use them for all kinds of things. And a lot of people may have never thought of using them actually on the bottom of one of their sewing machines as a resting place for that base or whatever it is that that machine is sitting on, but they work incredibly well. And I got these at Harbor Freight, and they have all kinds of sizes from 1/4 inch up to 1 inch. You kind of see in there a little bit in the box. There's another sewing machine that came in locally that had an issue with spool pins dropping, and I was able to fix it with grommets as well. So grommets are kind of my magic bullet for addressing a lot of things on the sewing machines if they can be applied that way. All right, let's see what else. I think that's all I wanted to show you on the bottom. So we've got an oscillating hook system. We've got a motor that's rated at 1.5 amps, US made, and it's transferring the power from the output pulley of the motor to another pulley, and then it's driving that energy into another belt that then works its way up to the balance wheel. So lost power, but let's see how it does. We'll actually see if we can put this to work a little bit. The other thing I'll point out real quick, I'll show you as well. I got to move this really close to the edge because I haven't had a chance yet to rewire the foot controller. All in all, the wire is in pretty good shape, but it's getting where it's really getting rigid. It's losing its pliability and its elasticity. So I didn't have time before the live stream to do it, and it's fully serviceable. It's fully functional like this, but I do intend to replace the wiring on this foot control as well. That was a concern that Doreen had because she could tell it was getting kind of rigid, you know, when the cords start to dry out and they just don't have that flexibility any longer. But the only other concern I have, again, not knowing if the rating on that US motor is spot on to being 1.5 amps, is this foot controller that came with the machine is a Mercury style foot controller. It's similar to the one that was on that FOF machine that I sent back to Colorado with a Husqvarna foot controller, because that Mercury style one that was driving less amperage than this, that FOF, I believe, had a 1.3 amp motor. This is rated at 1.5, and it caused a foot controller similar to this to heat up to over 150 degrees. So this might be another thing I have a discussion with Kevin and Doreen about, as far as, do they want to look at staying with this foot controller, or do they want me to upgrade it to, say, a Swedish style foot controller, so we've got a little bit more amperage tolerance if this motor puts out at the level that it's rated at. Because as it stands, most of these Mercury style ones are going to support up to about right around 1.1 amps, somewhere in that neck of the woods. Some of them are rated a little bit higher, 1.2, but most of these are going to be 1.1 amps. And this motor is claiming 0.4 of an amp higher than what this can tolerate. So it's possible this could have overheating issues like that other one that went back to Denver, Colorado, with the replacement foot controller, because the same style was overheating up to 150 degrees. So that's the only other thing that I'll have to discuss with them. And then I'll look at doing some good 18 gauge wiring on this foot controller and get this back into shape so that, you know, that, because what happens inevitably goes from being rigid, and then this coating on the outside that insulates the wiring starts cracking off, doesn't it? So before we get to that stage, I'll look at seeing if I can replace this with some upgraded wiring, which will serve the machine better too. So, all right, let's get this plugged in. This is also a much shorter cord than I would prefer on this foot controller. Very, very short. So I've got to get the machine almost right on the edge of the workbench so that that cord is long enough. See if I can move it like right over here. And then what else I did with this Belvedere is the lighting system is center bed right here over the harp area. I think you can see that. All right, where is it? There it is. And this pulls down just like you would expect it to pull down. It had an incandescent bulb like this, and it really wasn't brightening up that sewing space very well, so I replaced it with a screw-in style LED. If you have a similar machine to this, this is going to be, as far as the screw-in point, it's going to be 5/8 of an inch. 5/8 of an inch. So if you go to Depot or somewhere like that, you might find an LED version of this. Just make sure you have the correct screw-in base size of 5/8 of an inch, which would translate to right around 15 millimeters approximately. Probably get it more accurate if I do it this way so it's not in the grooves. Yeah, 15, 16, between 15 to 17, 15 to 17 millimeters is the base size on this bulb. I think it's closer to 17. Yeah, right around 17 millimeters. So that way, if you go into the place, you can say, I want one that's going to have a base circumference of around 17 millimeters. And they'll be able to get you the right replacement. So you have brighter light like this does now without that heat factor. I don't know if I'm getting text messages or if that's other notifications. Let me take a look. Nope, it's other notifications. Other notifications. All right. I've also got to cut a little bit more material. Oh, this is the original instruction manual. I'll just show this to you real quick. The original instruction manual that came with this machine that Doreen and Kevin dropped off. It's not a really huge manual either. It's probably about 18 pages. I think it's around 18 pages. And it was printed in Japan. Just the machine was made in Japan. And I assume they made the motors in the US and then they shipped them to Japan to be installed in the machines. That would make the most sense. They shipped them a whole box of these motors, cases of these motors. And then over in Japan, they installed the motors in the machines. But it covers a lot of good things, a lot of good guidance as far as understanding this Japanese machine a little bit better. The other thing I forgot to mention is on the back of that data plate, you may have seen it. This machine, as far as the recommended needle, is only up to a size 90-14, which is what we're going to be using today. It's only up to a size 90-14 needle. You can't use a size 16 or a size 18 needle on this machine. You max out at a 90-14. They basically give you a range of a size 9, which I believe is a size 65 metric wise. So from a size 9 needle up to a size 90 needle. So basically a size 9 up to a size 14. And part of that is it's got a restrictive needle socket where you slide that needle in. So you're not able to fit some of those larger needles in because the butt of the needle is going to be a little bit wider, and it just simply, you can't get it into the socket. It won't go in there. When you set this up for sewing, I'll talk about that real quick. Make sure the flat side of the needle is to the right, which means as that oscillating hook is going back and forth, that hook is going to be on the right side of the needle going into that scarf to grab that thread to complete the sewing process. And when you're threading the bobbin, this is going to take a traditional class 15 bobbin. You want to make sure you have that bobbin when you bring it together, bobbin case in left hand, bobbin in the right hand, that you have that thread coming underneath. So when that bobbin is snapped back into the machine, and that bobbin is turning in the sewing process, it's going to be turning counterclockwise, counterclockwise. And for my bigger hands, it's a little bit awkward to try to get into there. I kind of raise that tilt bed up a little bit, and then you should be able to reach in here and take that bobbin out. I can get it out fine, but when I go to put it back in, the tiny little space right here that they give you is a lot more difficult. So I would almost be more inclined to lift the machine up a little bit on this end, kind of lift it up like this, and do it from the bottom as I'm snapping that bobbin case back in. But it's easy enough to get in and out, and I'll go ahead and just take it out and then kind of show it to you. So you can see it's a traditional, I've shown you a lot of machines that use a class 15 style bobbin and bobbin case. It's going to be very, very typical of that. And I've told you before, these bobbin cases for the class 15s, if you order a replacement, make sure you order the correct one, because some of them have the little finger here that snaps in orientated at the 1 o'clock position like this one does. Others have the finger pointed at the 11 o'clock position. So if you need a 1 o'clock position and you order an 11 o'clock, you're going to get it all excited in the mail. You're going to go to that machine with it, and it will not go into that raceway because the finger is positioned in the wrong spot. So just be aware they come in two different versions. One is going to be 11 o'clock position, or one like this that's going to be at the 1 o'clock position. So if I take it apart real quick, you notice the thread is coming off the bottom. You see that right there. Traditional class 15 style bobbin. It's a little bit different, and there's different styles of bobbins as well. Within the class 15 series, you'll have some that have fewer holes like this. Let me see if I can grab another style here. You'll have class 15s that are more like this. So this is the one that came with this rocket, and these are similar to the ones that are in the accessory packet that comes with this machine as well. This little packet right here that has different goodies that come with this machine. Kind of open it like this. Actually, there's a variety of class 15s in here. I hadn't looked at this closely before. This is similar to the one that we're running in the machine right now. And then there are some other style class 15s that probably will work just as well in the machine. I didn't test them, but Doreen and Kevin can certainly test them. But it takes a class 15 style bob, and just be aware of that. And again, when you buy aftermarket ones, be aware that they're not manufactured to the same quality and standard that the originals were. So you may have some issues in how they operate in your machine, whether it's a Belvedere Rocket 110 or whether it's a different style machine. It's going to check real quick on a text message. Oh, hey, hello to Bill O'Rourke, buddy from Florida. Susie from Minnesota just shot me a quick text message and said, Bill's in the chat. Bill is a busy guy, even though he's retired. He's one of my leadership team members. He's been with me from the very, very beginning. And I'm so grateful that Susie made me aware of that so I could acknowledge Bill. But he's really busy even in retirement now down there in Kissimmee, Florida. Or as proper people say it, Kissimmee, Florida. And hopefully his battles with the homeowners association have come to an end. He had some major battles with them. I know he shared some of that with us, but it's always good to have Bill here. Bill has an interesting history. I won't give all of his CV or his resume away, but he did work with the Muppets. He's actually met the founder of the Muppets back in the day. He's a choir director. He's a wonderful vocalist as well. And he's also a wonderful restorer. He does a lot of restorative work on musical instruments and restorative work on sewing machines. I wish he lived like next door. I would have him in the workshop every single day with me. And he could even bring his parrots with if he wanted to, just as long as they don't get anywhere near Hank. Hank has a thing about chasing birds. I guess it's a dog thing. But it's great to have Bill here and all the leadership team members. We're blessed with so many great leaders that make this possible. and helping run the live streams, helping to manage the Facebook page as well, which again, the Facebook page has had exponential growth of like 200% from 3,000 followers to 12,000 in a very short period of time. So we continue to grow. Our family's getting bigger and bigger and bigger all the way around the world. And I'll need Bill's and Susie's and Emma's and Christine's and everybody else's help even more as we continue to grow. So yeah, all of that, you know what I'm saying. I could blah, blah, blah all day long. So, okay. Show you some quick maintenance again. Show you real quick maintenance before we pop this bobbin case back in. Using, you can use sewing machine oil or sewing machine oil kerosene mix like I do sometimes. Put a little bit on a Q-tip swab. And depending on what you're sewing with, I would say about every 4 hours of sewing, take that Q-tip swab, swab the inside of your bobbin case. Also slide that Q-tip swab around the shaft that bobbin is going to be spinning on. See how I'm doing that right there? And then also slide that Q-tip swab inside where that output from the raceway is going to be spinning that bobbin up. You can go all the way through. And if it gets stuck, don't fret. See how it got stuck? Just go from the other side, push it back out again. There we go. That easy. And I've cleaned this multiple times, but even with a little bit of sewing that I've done leading up to this live stream, already it's getting dirty again because the thread picks up the environmental stuff and a lot of that stuff gets transferred into the bobbin case. Also, you'll see when you're operating this as a release to get that bobbin case in and out, there's little hinges right over here. I always put just a little bit of oil on that as well. I usually oil it. Whoops. Didn't drop it, just lost my grip on it. Usually just put a little bit of drop of oil on those as well, just to keep that free moving. Not excessively, just a little bit. Then use your Q-tip swab to kind of wipe off the excess. Keep that hinge moving nice and free. And even if you have a machine with a vibrating shuttle, that bullet style one that you've seen me demonstrate before, where you've got the long barbell bobbins, that requires maintenance as well. Even if you have a vibrating shuttle machine, the old fashioned kind with the long plates, take that out periodically and clean the inside of that as well, just like we did on this more contemporary class 15 bobbin. And we put it back in, we're going to have that thread coming underneath the bottom, just like I described before. Line it up with that slat, kind of slide it back in. Get that through the slat right there, and then draw it all the way underneath that tension spring. You've got to actually bring it beyond that point so it's in this middle track where you can see the thread showing through. There we go. So now that thread is properly underneath that tension band, and if we need to increase or decrease it, it'll put more pressure on that thread as this bobbin spins. And this is your adjusting screw right here. Turn it clockwise to increase it, which would give you better top stitch definition, or turn it counterclockwise to reduce that top stitch definition. If you're struggling with tightening up that lock stitch on the bottom, you can reduce this a little bit. And I usually use a little screwdriver like this. You can use whatever works for you, but a little screwdriver like this, kind of slide it in there, and then just make it in really, really small, very, very small adjustments. I would say less than a millimeter with each adjustment stage. See what impact it brought. And if you need to adjust it a little bit more, you can do that. A lot of people get fearful of adjusting the bobbin case. There's no need to do that, because sometimes you'll get a machine and someone has seen this screw and they think that it's loose and they'll turn it all the way down. And then you're over here by the machine and you're cranking up that upper tension. cranking up that upper tension higher and higher and higher, and you're still not able to overcome the pull of the bobbin case. So sometimes you have no choice but to adjust this up or down so that you can have a more manageable range with your upper tension as you're sewing. Okay? All right, so we got this here. And the general rule when you're holding a bobbin case like this, it's a general rule, is when you're pulling on this and you're getting turned from that bobbin, it should be about 3 to 5 ounces of pull, approximately 3 to 5 ounce pull. So it shouldn't be grab hold of it, put on your non-slide boots and put your back into it to be able to pull this thread. It also shouldn't be the opposite where you pull it and it's like zoom, really, really light pull. Should be about 3 to 5 ounces, which means you'll feel the resistance, but it turns at the same time. You can see the bobbin within is turning counterclockwise, as if it were in the machine. It'll be turning counterclockwise as it's operating. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so we're going to raise our little bed up. I'm going to do my best with my big hands to slide this back in. It'd be a lot easier from the bottom, but I'll give it a go. We'll get this back into position, and we'll actually try sewing with this machine, this Belvedere 110 Rocket. So I just snapped it back into place, get our little bed down a little bit. Just grab our thread over here and just rotate that balance wheel. The other thing you can feel on this Belvedere, it's really evident. Most of the times when you're going to draw that thread up, you grab that balance wheel, you rotate it towards you, and it's very free moving. But because of the setup on this Japanese rocket machine with that really heavy belt that comes off of that 1.5 motor, and then it goes down to that other output pulley down below that then feeds all, it's kind of like the power goes down from the motor to the output pulley. The output pulley. Let me get it right. Take a deep breath. Hold on. All right, there we go. So on this machine, you've got the motor mounted above, and the main belt, the big belt that comes off of that output pulley on the motor, goes down to another junction where that motor power then is transferred to a secondary belt that then sends that power back up to the balance wheel again. You can kind of see that when I showed you the underside of this machine. The problem with that, because it's such a bulky belt coming off of that output pulley on the motor, when you turn the balance wheel, it feels awkward to me. It feels awkward. I'm just saying that so that when Doreen and Kevin get it back, they're not shocked. It's going to feel a lot different than when you're rotating it for other machines. So I'm just turning that, kind of pulling that thread up. There, we got her. Use these fancy clips that Alex and his wife sent me. Draw that thread up. Put our little extension bed back down. And now we're finally ready to put this Rocket 110 to work. And this characteristic of a machine that has an oscillating hook system versus a rotary hook system, typically the oscillating hook systems are going to pull that thread when you're initially starting to sew much harder than a rotary hook system. They're going to pull it a lot harder. So as you're launching with this rocket, you might want to hold on to that thread just initially as you're launching so that you don't get that little bird nesting stuff at the launch point on the underside of the material as you're sewing. Just hold on to it for just a little bit. So I'm going to start out with just some, and I don't have a ton of sew-offs ready. I can certainly cut a couple more. I've got some basic 100% cotton with that little stiffener in it. We'll get that underneath the presser foot. And also I should walk you around the machine as well. I didn't do that. This live stream contains a lot of information that we've covered, with the scope of the featherweights and everything else that this machine kind of ties into, that I don't want to miss the basics either on this machine. So let's real quick walk around the machine and then we'll put it to work finally. Okay. So this is obviously for bobbin winding over here. You're going to, as you normally would, you're going to disengage the clutch. And then to engage it, you just push this down. Easier with two hands. Push it down. It's going to go ahead and lock into place. Wind your bobbin. And then this should, as it fills up, automatically disengage again. And this bobbin tire that's on here is serviceable, but I'm probably going to replace it. It's starting to show a little bit of sign of wear. So I'll put a new bobbin tire on there before the machine is shipped out. But to wind a bobbin, you're basically going to start with your spool down here. You're going to go through this tensioner right here. And this tensioner, if you didn't know it, on most machines, this tensioner is adjustable. So you've got a screw right here that I've got the screwdriver into. You got a screw right there. If you go to wind a bobbin, you come from here to here, up to here. If you start to wind a bobbin, and the thread as it's going onto the bobbin is heavily concentrated on the left, it's really hitting that hard, and it's not going evenly back and forth, then you might have to adjust this and shift this so that if it's real heavy on the left, you're going to want to move this, loosen that screw and move this over to the right so that it'll distribute that thread more evenly. The opposite is true. It's heavier on the right, then you'll want to move this tensioner to the left so that, again, it distributes that thread evenly on the bobbin as you're winding it, evenly on the bobbin. But don't be afraid to adjust this so you get a better wind on bobbins, a better wind. This is reverse, and also it's going to be stitch length. So you'll notice that this little marker right up here moves as I move the stitch length lever. And then they kind of cross each other like this till we move all the way to the top into the reverse direction. So this is how you determine, where am I at as far as stitch length. When you're in the lower range, this is going to tell you. When you're getting up into the upper range and you're going into the reverse, this line up here is going to tell you. They basically cross each other, don't they? See how that works? Kind of clever, isn't it? Yeah. Upper tension, presser foot pressure. And as the Japanese are known for, they have a quick release on here. So that if I push this little ring down around here, right now I have no presser foot pressure, or I can incrementally increase it depending on the type of material that I'm sewing. Right now I'm sewing cotton, so I might need a little bit less pressure than if I were sewing leather or some heavier material. So you can push it down in increments. There's, probably about 10%. Push it a little bit further, 20%. Further. See how far we are down now? And if you go past the point that you want, just release it again, start over. Down. This could be cottons right here maybe, or lace or something light. Now we're getting into denim range. Now we're getting into leather range, thicker leather range, multiple layers, and we can push it all the way down and max it out. And you can see they've got some really nice oiling points that are easily identified across the top of the machine. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 oiling points that are identified very clearly on the machine. Obviously, there's many, many more oiling points on this machine than that, including on the bottom of the machine as well. So never assume that this is all you need to oil. As you rock your balance wheel back and forth, anything that pivots or pitches or goes up and down or side to side or anything like that, that's going to require lubrication. So always make sure you do a real close examination of your machine, rock that balance wheel, and see what you see pitching or pivoting, and it'll give you a clear indication of what you need to lubricate probably about every 6 to 8 hours of sewing. Keep that machine running smooth and silky. Okay. Just going to see if we have a better view. Yeah, I think I'll leave the light off for right now. It'll give us a little bit easier view of the material here. All right. So let's do our first sew off finally. I don't even know how long we've been running. We've probably been running for quite a while. Yeah. We've been running an hour and a half as I covered all the history and everything else, and we haven't even done our first sew off yet, so we better get that done. Umi over there is tapping her little foot. She's tapping her little foot saying, all right, let's get going here. Let's get going. All right, let's see what we get from this Japanese machine that's being driven by an American 1.5 amp motor. And I'm going to be setting that stitch length on the longest, so we should get a nice long stitch, hopefully. All right, take up arms all the way up. All right, let's give this a go. Here we go. Yeah. Running smooth machine. Again, I can feel a little bit of a hesitation when I hit that foot controller because of the way the drive system is set up. Remember, you got that big bulky belt that's coming off of the motor, and then it's transferring that power to the smaller belt that then pushes that power back up to the balance wheel and across the machine down to the needle. So with that little power transfer, the launch on this machine feels different than some of our other vintage machines. Let's take a look at these stitches. And again, this will be the longest stitch that this machine will give us. So I'm going to see if I can give you a measurement on it to give you an idea on the longest setting, how many stitches per inch you're going to get with this Japanese machine. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're getting right around 7 stitches per inch. Getting right around 7 stitches per inch from my measurement, which may not be absolutely spot on, but it's pretty close. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of like 6.5 to be absolutely spot on. So you're getting about 6.5 stitches per inch, a little bit less than what you would get Singer machines potentially. For example, the featherweights that we looked at before will give you right around 6 stitches per inch pretty predictably. 6 stitches per inch, whereas some of the other machines we looked at recently on this channel can get you all the way down to 5 stitches per inch, like the FOF machines and some of the Swedish beauties as well. So not a big difference, not a real big difference, but it's good to know, isn't it? So here's our stitching that we just did with this Japanese Rocket 110 Feather Light. I had to look over my shoulder. Feather Light. Bring that up a little bit more. There we go. And again, we are operating at the very top range as far as needle size on this Featherlight 110 Rocket. The biggest needle we can use is a 9014, and that's what we're using. That's what we're using. Oh, there I am. I looked away, and then all of a sudden I took the material off camera. Hold on a second. Let's try this again. There we go. Some really good looking stitching from this Rocket 110. Good looking stitching. We turn it over, we'll look at the lock stitch. Turn it like this first of all. Turn it like this. Totality of the stitching, lock stitch, and top stitch. Now, the one thing that the featherweight is known for in a lot of circles, and I think that this has been propagated very strongly by quilters, but they talk about the featherweight having the perfect stitch. I think that this is a definite page 34 stitch from this Japanese Rocket 110. Is it the perfect stitch? I don't think there is such a thing. And I've said that before. I think that stitches can be lovely. I think that they can be nicely balanced. I think that the clarity of the stitch can be spot on. I think that the spacing and the formation of the stitch can look absolutely as it should, but it can always be better. But I think that this Japanese Rocket 110 is doing a really, really good job, especially considering we're operating it with the largest needle that they recommend using on a machine like this. Some beautiful stitching, lock stitch and top stitch. So let's go ahead and take the size of the stitch down now so we can look at that stitch size variation. We'll take it down incrementally and see what we think of that. So I'm just going to take my stitch length adjuster, just going to kind of move it up incrementally. Nothing utterly scientific, other than maybe I'll go like from 4 is the longest, I'll go to 3 now. Then we'll drop it to 2, and then we'll drop it to 1 after that. You see our numbers right here. We started all the way at 4 on the top, and now we're going to drop it down to 3 so we can compare it, see what we think of that. I did not try it, but I would be curious if the presser foot bar and the needle bar would accommodate some of the Singer attachments as well. I didn't test it. And if you ever decide to test something like that unknown, always gently turn the balance wheel so you can get an idea of how it's going to clear and how it's going to work with that machine before you engage that foot controller. So we'll do our next stitch line now. We're down from the setting 4 down to 3. Then we'll do one more stitch line at 2. Then we'll do another stitch line at 1 and see what we think of the stitch variation on this machine, stitch length variation. And again, you might want to put a little bit of hold on those threads when you first launch. There we go. So that's going to be 3. We'll do 2 next, and then we'll take a look at all of these at the same time. And I don't remember if I asked Doreen and Kevin where they got this Rocket 110. If they're still in the live chat, you might want to ask them if they haven't shared already where they acquired this Japanese Rocket 110 Featherlight. But it's the first one I've ever had in the workshop. So now we're going to go from 3 down to 2, right about there. So now we're started up here. We're going all the way down to there. We'll give this a try, see what we think of that. All right, here we go. That's going to be 2. We have one more that we'll do. We'll go down to 1, and we'll give that a try, see what we think of that. So off camera over here, what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting that stitch length. I'm pushing it up a little bit further to get us down to 1. And it will be pretty close. We'll be pretty close to 25 to 30 stitches per inch. Pretty doggone close. We could go lower than that, but for our purposes, I don't think we'll go any lower than that. We could go all the way down to 0.5 on this Rocket 110. You notice I'm kind of bringing this take up arm was way down here. I'm kind of bringing it up to that launching point. So it's all the way at the pinnacle, and it's just getting ready to go on that downstroke. That's the best way to launch any sewing machine. All right, so now we're set way down. Let's take a look at this one, see what we think. Oh yeah, that's a teeny tiny. I almost said that's a spicy meatball, but that's a different commercial. Yeah, that's teeny tiny. We're way down there. And we got some good balance too. I kind of took a little peek. It almost looks like we may have to, if we were to be sewing on this material all day long, we'd want to look at backing off that upper tension just a little bit. I think we're a little bit dominant right now, a little bit dominant as far as that upper tension. So this is our top stitch. We'll look at that first. Our top stitch. Yeah, some good looking stitching. Good looking stitching. Again, I would not consider any machine to be able to do a perfect stitch, but I think this one is delivering some really, really nice looking stitching. I'd almost be curious if we used a smaller needle, considering we're right at the top threshold of the biggest needle that they recommend for this machine, if we would even get a different stitch look than we are now. But periodically I'll see a little bit of a tilt of the stitch, like on that third row, and that's an indication that our bobbin case might be a little bit on the weak side right now and being able to pull that thread down. If you get a little bit of a tilt on a stitch occasionally, that's usually a tension imbalance where either the bobbin case is pulling down too heavily or it's not pulling down hard enough. Yeah, totality of the stitching, kind of far out to see that. Turn it over, look at that lock stitch. It's our lock stitch now. Yeah, some good looking stitching. Good looking stitching from this Japanese Belvedere Rocket 110 Featherlight. It's a lot to say. I should probably just say Model 110 and keep it simple, right? Keep it more simple. All right, what else do I have to stitch off on here? Got some of this saddle grade leather. I'd already done one stitch off on it. I'll go ahead and cut that off. I haven't given anything away during this live stream, but eventually I'll give away another pair of these Guggenheim scissors. I haven't heard from the recipient that got them. I believe it was Jenny, if I remember correctly. Haven't heard how she's, the last time we heard she hadn't used them yet. Maybe she's used them by now. but I think they're a fabulous, fabulous shear. They really do an excellent job on all materials. Yeah. That's the one I did off camera. You just barely can catch a glimpse of it. Camera's not going to be able to focus on that. It's saying, "Are you kidding me? What? No way." All right, let's give this a try. Some of this saddle grade leather. And again, I'm not going to be testing the power of this machine per se today. I certainly could, but just doing some general sewing on it to see what we think. Again, we haven't seen one of these before. Some people might refer to this as a knockoff of a featherweight. I don't think that that's accurate because it's got a featherweight flavor with the tilt bed and just the branding of it and that. But it really is. It's a different type of machine than a featherweight, isn't it? Doesn't have the same hook system. Doesn't have exactly the same features and layouts of it. Got a totally different motor. So I mean, it's kind of apples and oranges, isn't it? But it still does kind of have that theme built behind it. So we're kind of looking at it through the eyes or the lens of what we would think about a featherweight in comparison to this Japanese, heavier, much stronger machine than our traditional featherweight. Okay, get this going. All right, let's see what we think of this one. Again, this is saddle grade leather. Saddle grade leather. Probably about three ounces or so. Oh yeah, it likes leather a lot. And we're not using a leather needle. We're not using a leather needle. We could be. We're not using a leather needle on this Model 110 Featherlight rocket machine. I can't help but use all the words. They're kind of fun. I mean, you can't say 110 Featherlight without tucking rocket into there. You know what I mean? You got to do it. I got to do it. But it definitely seems to like leather. Take a look at this leather sew off. Oh, but let's see here. Yeah, we had a little bit of an anomaly on the back with one of the threads not looking as quite as snug as they should. There it is. Beautiful, beautiful stitches on this saddle grade leather. I think we'll do some protected full grain leather as well before we wrap up this live stream. Turn it like this. And again, there'll be skeptics of me associating this Japanese Rocket 110 with their coveted featherweight machines. How dare you? How dare you put it in the same class as a featherweight made by Singer? Well, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway because that's what the Japanese were doing by introducing this machine. They wanted to put something into the market that would have the flavor of a featherweight, but a little bit different. A little bit different. All right, let's go across and look at these stitches this way. Yeah, those are really, really lovely stitches. Very, very nice stitches. Still not perfect. I would not describe them as perfect, but they're near perfect. Quite lovely, quite lovely. Oh, there they are. Yeah, very, very nice. Beautiful stitching. Beautiful stitching. These are locks. You can look at from the side there. Show you from the side. Around 4 ounces, probably closer to 4 ounces leather on certain parts of the leather. It's going to vary in thickness. All right, let's look at that lock stitch. Like I said, there was a little bit of an anomaly. Something about that needle didn't like that leather at that section, but over here we're starting real solid. So our lock stitch, there it is. Yeah, some good looking lock stitches, but it could be better. I'd be curious to try a size 9014 leather needle in this rocket machine and see how it would do, see how it would respond differently. But again, it's not a light sew off. You might remember recently in one of our live streams, we had a gentleman or lady, I don't know which, we had a gentleman or lady that was critical of the leather that I was using, basically calling it subgrade, easy to sew leather. Um, I got it got my dander up a little bit. It got my dander up a little bit because I work so hard. I work so hard to set up these live streams to do a legitimate challenge of these machines. I never push them all the way to the max of breaking point, but I push them pretty hard through our sewing Olympics through a wide field of sew offs. And to have somebody step into the live stream and basically say, you're using crappy leather. That's why you're able to sew it so easily. So I issued a challenge to that person and I said, tell you what, reach out to me. I'll mail you some of this leather. And then you get a similar vintage machine that has a vibrating shuttle. It was on that Montgomery Ward. Remember that machine I presented a while back? Montgomery Ward vibrating shuttle machine, and I was turning it by hand. It was actually in a treadle table, but you really can't use a treadle effectively. I bet you Bill probably could because of the level of experience he has with treadle machines. But when you're sewing a sew off this length, it's a lot tougher. It's a lot tougher to get a rhythm like you need when you're sewing with a treadle machine. And so I was turning all of these leather sew offs by hand. I think it was 2 layers of Italian leather, saddle grade leather. We did all kinds of leather. And it's been weeks. It's been weeks since I presented that Montgomery Ward with all of that leather and had that skeptic that stepped into our midst criticizing the leather I was using. Guess what? They haven't contacted me. I'd be happy to mail them a sample of that leather and have them demonstrate in a video doing the same thing we did on Carol's Montgomery Ward vibrating shuttle. They've disappeared. All I'm hearing is crickets. There's only crickets. And after that live stream, I felt a little bit bad. I thought that I'd been too rough. I'd been too aggressive in challenging them. But Susie from Minnesota and others reached out and said, brilliant. You didn't get mad. You didn't call them nasty names. You didn't ask one of us to ban them from the channel. You just issued them a simple challenge of saying, I showed you mine, show me yours. I showed you mine, show me yours. And they haven't shown me theirs. They haven't come back. They've disappeared. So, but this is really good leather when it's in focus. It's real good leather when it's in focus. And it's fun to sew leather like this because of how it presents that stitching, right? How it presents that stitching. All right, let's reduce this stitch a little bit. Let's go down to like 3. Run down this saddle grade leather one more time. Let's run down it one more time. Yeah, I don't want to be mean to anybody. I don't want to be mean to anybody that comes to our live streams ever, 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 ever. And I know the leaders don't want to be mean either. But you know what? If you're going to challenge us, then accept our challenge back, for goodness sakes, right? I think so. All right, so I'm going to go to like 2.5. I'm going to go to 2.5 on here. Right about, right about there. Yeah, right about at 2.5, I think. Let's see. Yeah, right about there. Right at 2.5. We'll see what we think of this on this saddle grade leather now. All right, pickup arms all the way up. Give that a quick little hold. Got to really slow it down here. All right, let's take a look at this one and see what we think of this. That had to be an interesting. I couldn't see it because I was focused on trying to keep the leather relatively straight, but that had to have been an interesting camera angle that I just gave you, huh? I like to do that because it makes it more interesting, doesn't it? You get right down there where the needle is hitting that leather. And you probably didn't catch it. You didn't see it. You couldn't see it. But initially, when that needle hit this leather, it kind of stalled just for a second. Again, the transfer of power from that motor is interrupted and being held back by so many things that I think it hit that leather for a second, and it was like, I need more help, need more help. Let's take a look at these, see what you think. Come on, camera. The camera's been doing such a good job. Now it's kind of like hesitating a little bit. There we go. There we go. Now we're back to work. Beautiful stitching. I think this machine would be really good. I mean, it's up to Kevin and Doreen, but I think this little machine would do really well with leather sewing, quite honestly. Especially if you put a leather needle in it. Yeah, lovely, lovely stitching. Again, not perfect, but really quite nice. Quite nice. This again is our lock stitch that we're looking at right now, our lock stitch. And again, looking from the side, it's not a garment leather. I've seen some channels where they sew garment leather. That's easy peasy leather. This is saddle grade. You can make gun cases out of it, gun holsters, pretty much anything that's going to require a lot of rigor, a lot of strength. Let's look at that lock stitch now. Turn it over. Oh, I described it as a lock stitch before. That was our top stitch. I haven't had my Diet Coke today. This is our top stitch. I'll get it right eventually. I think I'm on a Saturday schedule or something. This is our top stitch. There it is. All right, now I'm going to be correct this time. This is our lock stitch. Now we're getting to the lock stitch. I should not have had that second cup of coffee today. It's affecting me. See from the side again? Look at the thickness of that. Yeah, some beautiful stitching. Really, really nice stitching. I especially like the top stitching with this universal 9014 needle that we're using. It does a beautiful job on this leather with the top stitching, especially. We'd have to make some more tension adjustments so we can have a more predictable lock stitch. But all in all, it's done a really good job in managing that lock stitch as well through this saddle grade leather. Really quite nice. Quite nice. So we've done cotton, we've done saddle grade leather. I picked these up. I have no idea why, but I picked these up at the Dollar Tree. They're these little feather things. And I thought that this would be fun to stitch these at some point too. They're designed as a sticker. They're designed as a sticker, but I just thought they were so pretty that I'm almost inclined to say that we should give these a go on this Rocket 110 and just kind of stitch around the edges a little bit. See how straight I can sew, hopefully relatively straight, and give these a try just as something totally different that I normally don't sew on this channel. I just thought they were really cool looking, and they'd be fun to try to do some sort of project with them. No idea what the project would be. Yeah, those are really cool. You got these little anchor points on the back where you can stick them to stuff after you stitch them. This again might be a project that you could do with a son, a daughter, a granddaughter, maybe a neighbor kid. They're so spectacularly beautiful, and then just try some stitching down with them. I don't know how I'm going to do with these. I might have to remove these sticky pads on the back now so I can actually stitch down them more evenly, and then I could always, maybe I'll just have to stitch over them. I have no idea. But I thought I'd give it a try. Maybe we'll stitch around the outside, see if I can do that. I would like to get those sticky pads off if I can do it, though. It might be easier said than done. See if I can cut them off real quick. I get these spontaneous ideas, and I don't test them. I don't do a trial on them or anything like that. And all of a sudden, I get myself into a mess on a live stream where I'm trying to do something that I haven't practiced. And you're like, this guy's brave. This guy's really brave doing this stuff, never having pre-tested it. All right, see if I can get those sticky things are just, I think they're going to be a problem. There we go. So I got that off. Yeah, so I kind of wrinkled it a little bit, but we'll see if we can stitch this at all. I just think it'll be something different to try. Get that underneath the presser foot. Hopefully that stickum doesn't cause a problem for us. Let's see here. Actually, I should stitch all the way from the top. That would make more sense. We'll stitch all the way from the top down, and then we'll stitch down the other side as well. And I think I'll go with a size 3, I think, as far as stitch. Right about a size 3. So I just adjusted the stitch length just slightly. We'll get a size 3 and see if we can do this. This might be a total fail, but at least I'm going to give it a try. At least I'll give it a try. I just think that this would be a fun project to do with some little person, you know? Some little person. Like me. Yeah. All right, here we go. Let's give this a try. See how we do. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of liking that. Kind of liking that a lot. Yeah, we have to make some tension adjustments for sure. We'd have to bump up that upper tension quite a bit. So I'm just going to show you I'll show you the top stitching on this. The lock stitching is a little bit on the looser side because we're dealing with such a thin material. I'll show you both sides. I'll show you both sides. Let me just stitch down the other side for fun. But you can imagine a young person that's trying out sewing something. Everyone likes something shiny, don't they? These feathers are just kind of a cool looking thing that a young person might really, it might inspire them to want to try sewing after they do a little project like this of just stitching down uh, this foil type feather material. Yeah, maybe this is a feather off of one of Bill's birds down in Florida. Bill has all kinds of beautiful birds that he takes care of, and this is one of the feathers that Bill sent me. Maybe you're not buying it. Now you're not buying it. All right, let's give this a try too. Nice feed. Nice feed dogs on this. It's something as wafer thin as this, and it's doing a beautiful job of moving this along evenly over those feed dogs and underneath that presser foot. But again, it would require some specific tension adjustments if you wanted to sew these. Maybe what you could do, and it would have been a fun thing to do, is maybe stitching two of them back to back. You know what I mean? That would be something that you could do with a little person to teach them control of sewing. Take two of these, obviously take the sticky off. Of course, they're not going to match up that way either. Yeah, that was a failed idea. Maybe you could do them opposite. I have no idea. But yeah, you can come up with some interesting projects with these and then put them on display so that that young person can see their work up on the wall and that recognition of their effort in giving sewing a try. Encouragement goes a long way whenever someone is trying something new. Don't you agree? Whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, a little bit of encouragement goes a long way. So here's our top stitching on this totally random golden feather thingy. Not sure if the camera's going to be able to focus on that or not. Maybe. And again, I didn't test this. I did not test it. Did not make any adjustments on the machine. We just decided to give it a go. And maybe a colored thread, some sort of a colored thread would really make this pop, right? And again, you can get a pack of these. I don't even know how many are in the pack. Maybe 8 to 10 of these. Make some sort of a fun project. Maybe stitch them on the cloth. Stitch them onto another material. That would be fun. There's our lock stitching on the back. Not bad, but it's a little bit on the loose side. We'd have to bump up that upper tension to tighten this up more if we're going to sew through this thin foil type paper. But the machine, I was impressed how beautifully the machine fed this filled feather, this foil material feather, and didn't cool it, didn't damage it, just moved it along very nicely. Yeah. So just a random idea of something you could do with the grandkids or the neighbor kids, or do it with yourself as a fun little project. And again, you don't just have to stitch it like I did. You could stitch it to something or create some sort of a little mini quilt, incorporating these foil type feathers. I think that would be kind of cool. Yeah. I'm walking through the Dollar Tree and I saw these on the shelf, and some person was nearby, and I let out like a little, "Hey, look at that!" Good thing I know all the people at the Dollar Tree. They probably would have kicked me out. Yeah, they probably would have kicked me out. But yeah, just a fun little thing to try. You know what I mean? Something different. Let's give this a try now. This is some of that genuine elk hide. Some of that genuine elk hide, and probably almost 5 ounces of leather. And again, when you cut leather, depending on where it comes from on the hide, it's the thickness is going to vary on this little 5-inch section. It'll be a little bit thinner here, a little thicker there, a little thicker there, a little thinner there. It kind of varies, doesn't it? So we'll give this a try and see how this Rocket 110 handles this type of material. It's going to cut that end off to make it even. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else thinks those feathers are cool, but I thought they were cool. Kind of has some ideas now on how you can use this project and yeah, inspire a young person to try sewing. Why not? All right, let's go down this genuine elk hide. And again, I'm going to leave my presser foot pressure at the max. I've got it all the way down right now. If I tried it like this, it wouldn't go anywhere. But we're going to go all the way to the max, push that little inner button all the way down because we're going to need a lot of pressure trying to move this elk hide along. Okay, all right. Get that take-up arm all the way up. And I'm not going to give this a hand start. And because of that transfer of power I talked about, where you've got the one real big belt that comes off of the motor down to that pulley assembly, and then it transfers the power over to the other belt. When I go to engage this motor, even though it's rated at a 1.5 amp motor, I'll bet you it hits this leather and it just stops. I might have to give it a little bit of a hand turn because that power is, it's just the power is kind of uneven when you've got that many transfer points on a machine. You know what I mean? Let's give it a go though. Maybe it'll surprise me. All right, here we go. I'm going to hold that thread a little bit. Oh, it did surprise me. Yay. And that first stitch line we just laid down is on the setting on 3. It's not on 4. It's not on the max. It's not on the max. Yeah, that's kind of groovy. Let's take a look at this. Saddle grade leather. We should do a stitch line of 4 and maybe 2 and 1 on this too. We'll look at this first stitch line. See what we think of this. I was talking about that skeptic that was in our live stream for that Montgomery Ward. I noticed they didn't say anything at all. They didn't say anything at all about the genuine elk hide. They didn't want to go down that road. They didn't want to go down that road and try to challenge the elk hide. They're like, I think I'll leave that alone. I think I'll leave that alone. All right, let's take a look at these. There we go. And again, we're not using a leather needle. I'll probably send some leather needles with this machine when Doreen and Kevin pick it up so they can give it a go. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Lovely. Again, if you look at it from the side, I'll show you the end. Actually, I'll show you the end right here. That is thick of thick. Here's our lock stitch. Kind of pulling it back a little bit so we can see those stitches a little bit more easily. Beautiful lock stitching. We've got some really good tension balance right now on this machine in relation to sewing leather. It's loving this leather right now a lot. But between the lock stitch and the top stitch right there, again, I'm really leaning towards recommending that Kevin and Doreen come up with some projects that are going to involve leather on this machine. I think this is a real good machine that seems to enjoy leather. And if we throw a leather needle in, it's only going to get better. It's only going to get better. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to leave that one alone. I'll see if I can cut a little bit of protected full grain leather, and then we'll wrap up this live stream. Yeah, we'll wrap up this live stream pretty quick. So I described in the other live stream, I got some of my leather. Oh, you know what else I should give credit? Emma's going to be mad at me if I don't. You see my shirt? My shirt right here is a shirt that Emma did some traveling out in New York. Emma's originally from New York. And I've had a chance to meet Emma down in Florida, met her family, great folks, Yvette, and didn't meet Brenda, but met Oscar, wonderful people. And when she was traveling out in New York with one of her friends, keep dropping this leather, she picked this shirt up just for me and mailed it to me at the workshop. So now I'm officially a New Yorker. I think I'm officially a New Yorker, maybe. So yeah, cool. Had to show that to you. I forgot I had it on until I looked at the camera and I'm like, oh wait. Okay, so let me give some of this protected full grain leather. And again, what this is not the leather that Emma sent me. This leather I got from a local place, probably about 4 ounces of leather, I would say. And what they do with this protected full grain leather is they put it on reupholstering the seats of the really exclusive elite private jets that the rich people fly on. This basically is the surface for their butt to sit on. And so we're going to sew some butt leather, which is actually protected full grain leather. I shouldn't say butt leather. That sounds horrible, doesn't it? Yeah. Boy, it smells good too. Nothing like leather. Nothing like leather. All right, we'll just cut a little section of this off and kind of stitch around. Maybe I'll cut it like a V using my Guggenheim scissors. Honestly, if you knew how easily these things are cutting through this leather, it's just insane. Just like that. Just like that. All right, let's stitch around this protected full grain leather. I'll do my best to stay on course, but I'm not going to promise you. Not going to promise you I'll do it. I'll try. Oh, I should show you the threading too, shouldn't I? Duh. So, cool thing about this machine, I'll just lift this up real quick. And yes, I'm using dual duty all-purpose XP thread from Joann Fabrics. On the weekend, I think it's Friday through Sunday, you buy 3, you get 2 free. And because I go through so much thread, I tend to buy this stuff. It does a really good job and it's not as expensive. And this also has a collapsible spool pin, which is kind of nice. It's all the way up in the up position right now. And then when you don't need it, so you don't break it off, you push it all the way back down like that. Kind of cool, huh? I think that's really a nice feature. All right, let me get my thread back up there. So we come from this point right here with the spool. Then we're going to come across the machine. We've got a thread guide right here where you have to kind of go in the top. There's 2 holes. You go in the top from right to left, and then you come back through the bottom hole from left to right. So right to left, left to right. And then you come straight down past the Belvedere branding badge mark right here. Come down to the tension discs. And you bring that thread in between the tension discs. It's got a huge check spring, a take-up spring right over here. Absolutely enormous. You have to kind of draw the thread around in between that check spring and then draw that spring over to the right so that it saddles that thread in that little notch right there. If I move my finger out of the way, I think you can see that little notch. And then you're going to come behind this thread guide right here with the thread. Both of the threads from the top and the bottom are behind this little thread guide. Then you come up to the take-up arm right here. You thread that from right to left. Come down here. There's a little thread guide right here adjacent to the needle. You have to kind of wiggle it through there. And then finally, you're going to come down and you're going to thread the needle from left to right. Thread the needle from left to right. Okay, that's it. Like I said, it's really an easy, user-friendly machine, incredibly well designed. Apart from the transfer issue of the motor, that's the only thing I take issue with on this Japanese Model 110. All the rest of the machine is just absolutely top shelf. I think the engineers were probably excited about the weekend when they designed that transfer point on the bottom of the machine. And they said, hey, let's go out and have some drinks. We're all done with the machine. And they kind of rushed through that. I think they could have done that maybe a little bit differently. And then that 1.5 amp motor that it's rated at would have even a stronger delivery than it does now, even stronger. Okay. I'll stop ranting about the motor and the transfer points. I'll stop ranting. Maybe. Maybe I'll stop ranting. You never know. All right, let's go around this protected full grain leather now. And I'll leave it on 3. That seems to be a pretty good stitch length. All right, here we go. I think I sewed too far. Did I go over? Did I go over? I think I went over maybe a little bit. I'm right on the edge, right on the edge, right on the edge, right on the edge. Give these threads a quick clip. Take up arm up. I think we should be good. All right, let's continue. Oops, we're stuck. I've got that leather stuck. Hold on a second. There we go. I had that leather kind of caught on the tongue of that presser foot, and we were basically spinning our tires. So we're going to have a little bit heavier concentration of thread down here where I was kind of stalled. All right, let's go again. That's not easy. Doing that with one hand. All right, let's try going over this way now. We'll go all the way around the other edge. Hopefully I'm not stalled again. I might be. All right, let's give this a go. I think it's kind of fun to be able to do that, don't you? If I had a camera person here, they could do that for me, and then I'd be able to sew even straighter. Maybe. I doubt it. I'd still sew, of course. I'd be like talking to the camera person. So how are the kids doing? How are things going? You having a good day? Yeah. Scott, you sewed over again. Oh, dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. All right, let's give these threads a clip. Clip over there. All right, let's take a look at this stitching on this protected full grain leather. Come on, camera. There we go. There we go. Look at that edge right there. You get an idea of the thickness of this protected full grain leather. See that edge? That's kind of a cool shot. Look at that down there. You can see the little V design of those stitching, of those stitches. It just creates a beautiful look, doesn't it? Lovely stitching. Totality of the stitching. Probably turn it like this. It looks like I sewed straighter that way. Yeah, a little bit straighter. This over here, to give myself a little bit of credit, this is when I was holding the camera down by the needle. That's why I sewed way out of line. I was wanting to stay closer to the edge, but I was holding the camera at the same time. It's like, oh, dang it. Dang it. Lock stitch. Take a look at the lock stitch as well. It's going to be hard to see it in certain spots. Protected full grain leather has a lot thicker nap. I have to kind of pull it back as best as I can. We'll look and see what we can see. We can't see much of anything, can we? Unless I really, really pull it back hard. There, you can kind of see it. If I pinch it over maybe like this. Any rate, you're smart. You get the idea. It's got a beautiful lock stitch. It's just because of the nap of the leather, it's kind of hard to see it, isn't it? Kind of hard to see that lock stitch. Kind of pops through at certain points. You can catch a glimpse of it. And then it disappears again. But the top stitch is really that's your money maker, isn't it? If you're sewing leather, generally, if you're sewing leather, that top stitch is going to be your money maker. That's what people want to see. And this has done a brilliant job, I think. Brilliant job of laying down a top stitch that's absolutely brag-worthy. Absolutely brag-worthy. Beautiful stitching all the way around. Yeah. So I don't know, out of time, out of respect, out of whatever, I think we're going to wrap this live stream up unless someone wants to see something that I haven't sewn yet, and you're just desperate to see it. But I mean, sewing that little feather thing that we did, that was the light side of, the sewing for the machine. We did cotton. We did different types of leather. I would love to do more, but with all the other stuff that I covered in this live stream, we've already run really, really long. I'm almost afraid to look at the clock, but yeah, well, not bad. We're under 3 hours. That's pretty good for us, because we cover so much in these live streams. But yeah, I'll look at the live chat. If anyone wants to see anything else real quick, we'll do an additional sew off. But otherwise, I think this Belvedere is ready to get picked up by mommy and daddy from Iowa. Our dear friends Brenda, listen, look at me, Doreen. I've got Brenda in my head now. Doreen and Kevin, our dear friends Doreen and Kevin from Iowa. And then I'm hoping again, either Tuesday or a week from today, I'll present that Bernina, and you'll be able to see. We'll go from a great Japanese machine like this to a Swiss machine, and then they'll become an Iowa machine as they travel back with Doreen and Kevin. But again, thank you to those good folks they've already traveled out here once to bring these machines, and then the other machines that I talk about them bringing as well. And now they're going to be making another trip out this summer to pick these up and then to haul them back to Iowa again, which is I don't know how far it is from where they are to coming to the workshop. Someone wants to Google Iowa to Oconto. I mean, it's not around the corner. takes a little while to get here. So, but a great machine. I'll look at the live chat first, see if there's anything else we should sew. Yeah, great to have you here, brother Bill. Good to have you here. Great, always great to have Bill in our midst, and appreciate you popping in. I didn't know coming. I'm glad Susie from Minnesota sent me that text message. Otherwise, I'd be over here. I wouldn't have a clue that he was in the live chat. So great to have our good friend Bill O'Rourke from Kissimmee, Florida. He's cringing right now. He's cringing. Kissimmee, Florida. It's great to have you here, Bill. Yeah, everybody here. So I don't see anybody else. I don't see anybody else asking for any specific sew off at this point. Just seeing if I want to grab anything real quick, and then we'll wrap this up. In the meantime, I'll rotate this machine. You can look at this machine a little bit while I'm over there finding something else to potentially sew. Now, these feathers are a hoot. Pick up some of these feathers and use them with the grandkids or neighbor kids or whoever. I think. All right. See if I can find something else real quick. Yeah, why don't we try this? Some of this stretchy denim, which I'm not really a big fan of. I'm not a fan of this stretchy denim stuff. But we'll cut some of this real quick, and we'll give this a go. I think these are defective. Look at this. Look at that. One leg is like short. The other leg is long. What's that about? Oh, that's the leg I've been cutting on. Ha! Yes! I knew what was wrong. I'm just teasing you. All right. Let's see what we can do with this. We'll just sew through a couple layers of denim, and then we'll consider the deal done. All the way to the tip on these. Not like some of those scissors where you get to the end of the scissors and it doesn't cut through. These are just like crazy strong scissors. All right. I'll turn my light back on just to show you that it works. All right, what do we have here? Yeah, I think I'll cut this bumpy edge off too. Make that even over there. Okay, so I've got two layers right there. What do you guys think? Japanese rocket machine, model 110. Should we do, I'm not going to do 2 layers. That's kind of insulting. I won't do 2 layers. Should we do 4 layers? I don't know if I can get 8 layers underneath the presser foot. Although I could cheat and I could take the presser foot pressure off and push the presser foot up. Should we do 4, 6, or 8? 4, 6, or 8. And again, I did. So 8 might be too much for clearance, but we can see if we can do it. So 4, 6, or 8 layers. 2 layers. 4 layers would be like that. 6 layers would be 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, kind of like that. That would be 6 layers. Looks pretty impressive. That would be our 6 layers right there. I almost shudder at the idea of 8 layers. What would 8 layers look like? Good Lord. There's 4 layers. That would be 8 layers. 4, 6, or 8. Oh man, why do I do this to myself? Why do I do this? Why do I do this? All right, we have 1 vote for 6. Any other votes? Anyone want to be crazy and go for 8? Or 8. Oh, text message. Hold on. This will be our final sew off. In a live stream, and we'll check it out immediately afterwards. Six width. So no other votes. So it looks like we'll go with 6 layers. It looks like we'll go with 6 layers. 6 layers. All right. Both of my leaders, and yeah, you're right. There is a lot of work, a lot of work that goes into what I do with these machines, and also getting ready for the live streams as well. So, but it's well worth it. It's really it's really a special place that we gather together. I hope all of you feel that way as well. Special opportunity for us to come together, and not always just to have discussions centered just on the sewing machine that's on the workbench that I'm presenting, but you get acquainted with people, you learn other things about them, you develop new friendships, and I mean that's the best of learning, isn't it? Where you're with people you enjoy with, and you learn more about them. You talk on topics all over the place, and somehow it centers us eventually back vintage sewing machines and the one that we are having. So yeah, it's all good. All right, so 6 layers seems like the vote. I'll do my best to fold it. So 2 layers, 4 layers, and 6 layers. And I'm guessing I should fold this the other way so I've got the dark side facing out. Let's do it like this. 2 layers, 4 layers, and 6 layers. I hope I did that right. I think that's 6 layers. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what we're going to be attempting right there. Look at it from the side, from the end. Sort of can see it. Yeah. That's a lot of denim, and especially this stretch denim. That's a lot of denim. All right, let's see how this Japanese engineered Rocket 110 Feather Light does with this sew off. We'll kind of go down, around, and around. We'll kind of go in a little square. Okay. Gonna make this just a little bit longer. Right now we're set on right around on 3. If you can see that, we're set on 3. I'm gonna bump it up just a little bit. Oops, there we go. Wrong way. Go a little bit above 3. We're kind of between 3 and 4. 4 is our max, and 3.5 is going to be just about almost 90% of our max. Let's see how we do on this one. All right, here we go. 6 layers of stretchy, yucky, nasty, wish I could burn this stuff denim. No, I don't. I don't want to burn it. But it is tricky stuff to sew, truly. All right, here we go. All right, let's rotate that down. Cut these threads real quick. Sewing to the finish line, sewing to the finish line. Here we go. I think I sewed too far to the finish line. Now I have to sew it at an angle a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice balance. And again, this is not a, when you get to this, this type of denim, and some of you probably know more about this denim than I do, but it's got a vinyl in it. It's got to have a vinyl because it's so stretchy. It's almost like bubble gum britches. Is that a thing? Wouldn't that be a cool brand? Someone wants to make a lot of money, develop a line, develop a line of clothing, maybe for young people, maybe even pre-adolescents or something, and call it bubble gum britches. Bubble gum britches. And it'll be this stretchy denim stuff that the young people like it. They like this stuff. I don't know why. Maybe it makes them look cooler or more form-fitting. I have no idea. No idea whatsoever. Take a look at these stitches. Really quite nice. Quite nice. Once the camera says, hey, I'm ready, I'll focus on it now. There we go. Oops. Beautiful spacing and formation. Again, this is a stretchy material. The one thing I can really say about this Rocket 110 is the feed dogs and the feed system on this is fabulous. It does a great job. When we were feeding that little, that super thin foil feather, it didn't miss a beat. And when we're feeding these 6 layers of this stretchy denim, doesn't miss a beat. Lays down just gorgeous stitching all the way around. Literally stretch this stuff in my hand. It's kind of crazy. Let's see here if I can get this to a point where you can see it. So that's all of our top stitching. That's all of our top stitching. We're able to see most of it, I think. But again, this stuff is, look at that, just stretchy as the dickens here. Yep, bubblegum britches. Someone needs to develop a line, seriously. So beautiful stitching all the way around. Beautiful stitching. And again, 6 layers, stretchy stuff, very tricky stuff to sew. We'll turn it over now. Look at this lock side. It's our lock stitch side, which I think is going to be just as spectacular. Once we get the camera to focus, it'll be spectacular. Look at that stuff. Just nuts. Wow, wow, wow. There we go. Beautiful lock stitch. Beautiful lock stitch. 6 layers of heavy vinyl based denim. Heavy vinyl based denim. Like this maybe now. Beautiful stitching. Wow. There I had a little bit of a wardrobe malfunction with that stretchy stuff kind of puckering up a little bit at the very end there. Very, very nice. Look at that. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So yeah, I mean, between the denim, the 6 layers of denim, I'll just kind of put it on the machine as we go on this beautiful little tilt bed. 6 layers of denim, genuine elk hide, saddle grade leather, 100% cotton. Put that on the bottom. 100% cotton. Our funky little feather. And then I don't want to forget our other protected full grain leather here that I sewed around that little V shape with it with. So yeah, not our biggest sewing Olympics ever, but I think it's given a good test to this Japanese made. What I'll consider is kind of their attempt to market the featherweight, isn't it? They're calling it a feather light. They've got the tilt bed. They beefed up the motor dramatically from 0.4 amps all the way up to 1.5 declared amperage. So this machine, by rating, is more than 3 times more powerful than the American featherweight counterpart. And I'm guessing that back in the day, they might have marketed that fact that it was more than 3 times more powerful than the featherweight that was made in the US or Britain or Canada, for that matter. So the Japanese are very smart. And I think they've done a brilliant job. There I am. Japanese are very smart. I think they've done a brilliant job of coming up with a machine that could run neck and neck with the most coveted machine of all time, probably the featherweight that was introduced at that Chicago World's Fair in 1933. And they rolled this out, long after that, obviously, but still when the featherweight was still in production, this machine would have come on the scene. And anyone that was wanting that extra power, a little bit bigger harp space, and then it has some of those features as well that were attractive about this model. No doubt they sold a lot of these. And yeah, so anyway, thank you to Kevin and Doreen. We'll get that other Bernina in front of the camera soon enough. And then you can make the drive from Iowa to Oconto. We'll do lunch again. I'll actually treat you at a different restaurant in Oconto called Riverside Diner and Grill. They have all kinds of smoked stuff there, and certainly regular stuff as well. And if anybody wants to make the trip as Doreen and Kevin are coming out, we'll have a little pate and celebrate these great machines that came from Iowa to Oconto, and then eventually from Oconto back to Iowa. Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, God bless you guys. Thank you to the leaders, including Bill, who had to pop in and pop out. Probably one of the parrots needed his attention, but it was great to have all the leaders here today. I don't think Christine made it. I think she's working today, but we had Emma, we had Susie, we had Bill for a little while. And thank you to them so much for taking care of the family and for making everybody feel welcome. And I'll come up with something for Tuesday. It might be the Bernina, it might be something else. So I'll keep you in suspense, okay? But again, thanks to Doreen and Kevin for letting me have this great machine in the workshop. And she's done her dance. She's ready to go. Take care. God bless. Yeah, and a little bit more Japanese music to wrap us up, I think. A little bit more Japanese music to wrap us up.